After 4 straight hours of sexual innuendos and continually questioning my existence, I present to you this week's video. Sponsored by absolutely nobody, because I guess I'm not cool enough yet. I was pretty undecided on what I was going to do this week, after the success of last week's video, which, by the way, check these numbers out. Almost 3K views, a net gain of over 30 subscribers, and 52 people who paid the like tax. You guys have pleased the YouTube overlords, but there's still more to be done, as is evident by the voicemail they left me.
Hello. We are once again asking you to subscribe and pay your contribution to the state. We are always watching. Thank you.
Enough about them. Let's move on. I'm going to speedrun these few reminders so it should take less than 20 seconds. First, the 1,000 sub goal by the end of the year. Second, April's schedule. A Citrus vs. Bloomidoo video is planned for either next week or the week after, and a Shinsekai Yori video, like my Darling and the Franks video, will follow suit after that. That wasn't so bad, was it? Alright, so what is this anime I spent until 2 AM watching Wednesday night? This one is pretty niche, but if you've seen it, you'll know it. We Without Wings, Under the Innocent Sky, or Oretachi ni Tsubasa wa Nai. This anime is truly the king of ecchi anime, but in a different way than other anime like Testament of Sister New Devil or High School DxD. We Without Wings takes a different approach to the ecchi harem genre while still signaling some of those same hallmarks, such as specific camera angles and portrayal of male and female characters. However, We Without Wings is also quite a bit different than what most fans of the ecchi or harem genres might be used to. Let me explain, but first, you see that big red button that says subscribe on it? You'd be doing God's work if you clicked on it. We Without Wings caters to the male gaze, something crazy, but there's also a very interesting end of the story as well. One that has more to do with themes that are actually quite a bit more serious than much of the plot of the anime itself. While it's full of sexual innuendos and a lot of pervy nonsense, the themes of identity and, in some aspects, mental health are also there. They're just not talked about until the end of episode 11. But we'll save that one for a little later in the video. One of the big things that I wanted to talk about were some of the allusions and cultural references seen throughout a lot of the anime. For example, when Hayato's out at night helping search for the missing bike, there's a girl that is new to the country, Japan. If you've seen the English dub, you can hear the way she speaks is slow and certain things she says make almost no sense. Hence why he tells her to hit the books instead of hanging out in the streets at night. There are other times where references are made to things like female characters flashing undergarments, which leads to a brief conversation about Japanese men being into that kind of thing. The counter-argument is that it's not as bad as it's made out to be. This is a huge cultural reference because things like this are an issue in Japan. Just recently, there was a guy, whose name eludes me, that was arrested for taking pictures of the underneath of girls' skirts recently. He admitted to having done this crime. Yes, in Japan, looking up and taking pictures of girls' skirts is a crime. Fun fact, phones sold in Japan actually make a sound when you take a picture, regardless of whether or not it's on silent. It goes to show just how big of a problem this is. Less important, but still notable references are made to the publishing industry and the rise in freelance work. Shu and Hayato both work odd jobs that fall outside the realm of traditional work. Shu is a freelancer for a publishing company where he writes columns and reviews for books. Hayato works wherever help's needed. Freelance in 2011, when this anime aired, wasn't nearly as prominent as it is today. Platforms like Upwork and Fiverr didn't even exist yet, or if they did, it was in extremely limited capacity. There's an interesting piece to this puzzle that I'll get into a little later as well, and it goes back to my first point about identity. Moving on, another reason this anime breaks that traditional ecchi or harem genre mold is for its crude and sexual humor. Anime like this do not get dubs anymore because the culture against these kinds of things is very antagonizing. I mean, people complain about being cancelled now. Imagine you tried some of the things in this anime. You'd never last. Nobody would. When Takashi Hanada is confronted by Asuka at the end of episode 5 because Takashi's affection for her has been lacking, she gets mad and he cautiously says, "Why are you yelling?" To which Asuka replies, "I feel like yelling." This exchange ends when she says, "Sure, take everything I said 2 years ago and hold it over my head." The best part about this is Takashi's response and her response thereafter. It's still true though, right? Asuka replies, "Of course not, I'm a woman." This is a joke. What the anime is implying here is that women change their minds all the time. Therefore, what Asuka said 2 years ago is no longer relevant. The anime then transitions into Itami, who I'll discuss alongside Takashi, Hayato, and Shu a little later, for a brief second with his hand in the air, groaning. This is a great use of comedy and scene transition that allows for the viewer to just let the anime cook. It's like, did Asuka really just completely discount herself in front of her boyfriend? Just watch this.
Oh, sure. Take everything I said 2 years ago and hold it over my head.
It's still true though, right?
Of course not. I'm a woman.
Asuka is definitely more level and down to earth, but most of the other girls in this anime are so stereotyped and blown out of proportion, it's funny. At the start of episode 4, she talks about having a private meeting with the new cute girl to give her some forbidden career advice. And the scene just devolves entirely after that. Loading example clip number 2.
At least she gets to see the world now. Teacher Naru, I fight in your honor.
Let's change venues and move to the restaurant. Eriko, for example, is loud and obnoxious, always wanting Kakeru to do something and give her attention. There's a scene where, in the first episode, where Shu is talking about inviting girls to the director's single party and he goes, "We should really try to invite some nice ones. No mean as hell ball busters like Eri, okay?" This prompts an immediate cut into Eri smashing his face with a platter, and this one's too funny not to include.
We've got to get some more chicks, but we should really try to invite some nice ones. No mean as hell ball busters like Eric, okay?
Idiot. Didn't you notice the mean as hell ballbuster was still here? Well...
No, hold on! I meant like...
The best part of the whole anime is probably the narration by DJ Condor and the fourth wall breaks. One notable wall break happening early on in the first episode where Shu addresses the audience directly and actually gets in your face. The voice in the radio at the start, and sometimes end of each episode, Condor is so full of raunchy remarks that the generic radio host voice makes him sound absolutely insane. He talks so fast. I mean, all the characters have their own sense of mind-numbing stupidity in some scenes, and I could spend all day just highlighting different scenes. You have the weird gang war that takes place under a bridge where each group throws some rather interesting insults at each other that make no sense. Ojiri's fetish with Kakeru's sweaty work clothes and attire, which ends about as you'd expect, with a whiff and immediate KO. Definitely one of the funnier scenes though. And then the switch between characters at the end of episode 11 where Asuka is demolishing Takashi as she tries to bring him back out of himself. Speaking of which, this particular scene makes for a great transition and one of the most unique things about We Without Wings. Identity and the nod towards being yourself. This is a far more subtle theme throughout the first 10 episodes because it doesn't get mentioned much, so let me explain. Takashi is Hayato, Shu, and Itami, but they all stem from a little brother that Kobuto had when she was really little. All of these different personalities were congealed into one that was meant to protect Takashi. While we see all of these different personalities as actual characters, they are really just one person. But this is how multiple personality disorder is seen by the host. They are unique individuals. The plot twist at the end is that Gretagard, this fantasy world that each of the aforementioned characters returns to, is just a game, and one that Asuka has played in the past. She calls out Takashi directly and finds it sweet that he named the princess of the game after her, but doubles down on the fact that it's just a game. This is in conjunction with her own struggles to find a part of herself and discover her own unique values as a child when her parents were away. She formed an imaginary little brother in her head to play with and help keep her company when she was lonely. The fact that she kept the toys from that period signifies a deeper meaning to all of this. It shows the attachment she had to that imaginary person is still present in the future moment, but in a different way. Asuka doesn't want to be alone, but at the same time, she wants to support Takashi as best she can, allowing him to return to Gretagard if that's what he truly wanted. When she poses the question of whether he would choose to stay in the real world or Gretagard, he chooses Gretagard because the people there need him more. But Gretagard is only an escape from reality when things get hard or there becomes a situation he doesn't want to face. It's an escape from the harsh truth that reality sucks sometimes, but we can't run from our problems when the going gets tough. There's the reserved Takashi for the daytime and socializing, Shu for the evenings to release the inner desire to have fun and mess around, and Hayato for when that prominent masculinity is needed, the late nights. Itami is an interesting part of Takashi and stays mostly in the back, but the most prominent time he does come out, he's the literal embodiment of these grandiose Gretagard fantasies. If you've seen the anime Chuunibyou, you've likely at least seen the eye patch, then here's a quick rundown on what Itami's relation to that is. Chuunibyou is a Japanese term for teenagers that have, as I mentioned, grandiose delusions, want to stand out, and believe that they have hidden knowledge or secret powers. Takashi and Gretagard are prime examples of this, and Itami is the manifestation of that as an actual character. Characters like this will oftentimes use an eye patch, which is how you can tell them apart. See how much different this anime is from others like it? We Without Wings isn't your typical ecchi or harem anime. It's packed with loads of comedic elements, innuendos, and jokes that, for some, require a little digging or a quick internet search. Yes, it's perhaps some of the most clothed eye candy you'll get, and about as close to delusional hentai as it gets, while still remaining clothed 99% of the time. Speaking of innuendos, notice how the copyright is copyrighted by navel, which is basically the area around your belly button? Get the reference? That's not to say its references and allusions to Japanese culture, media, and other briefly mentioned things aren't significant though, because they are. Unfortunately, I can't find the episode where this is mentioned, but Inner Naruku is referenced sometime between episodes 10 and 11, and could potentially refer to the anime Inuyasha, specifically episode 16 in Manga chapter 54. Even the significance of going to school in a uniform or taking off your shoes when you step inside the house are important and make their intentions clear. We Without Wings is pretty colorful, but there's a reason why it remains one of my favorite anime to this day, and having the chance to rewatch it in one sitting allowed me the opportunity to look at it with a different and approximately decade-older perspective. When I first watched this anime back in 2013, it pretty much went right over my head, as did a lot of other anime at the time, but hey, that just makes the rewatch all the more worthwhile. Anyways, hope you all enjoyed, and if you need a good laugh, then you know just what to watch. As always, check community post for the latest and greatest, and I'll see you all next week. The story is good, and the animation really helps to flesh that out, but there's no definitive end to the anime, which creates a problem if Citrus is to hold on to its throne. The next important thing that I found noteworthy was Maureen's misunderstanding. She thought Gojo was going to chip away at her cosplay until he was finished and didn't realize he was doing it for her to make her